Are you gaslighting your children? I'm Coach Kathleen with Phoenix Rising. If you have left a toxic partner, either narcissistic, abusive, or both, we're programmed as parents to try to facilitate a positive relationship between our child and the other parent, which we should do to a certain extent, but not to the point where we aren't honest with our kids. So you know your partner, right? You know that they're toxic. You know they're selfish. They can be bullies. They can be hurtful with their words or actions. They're very self-centered. And this makes them dysfunctional parents and causes emotional wounds with the child. But in our attempt to be the bigger person, or to try to be fair, or try to make sure that we're not saying anything negative about our partner, sometimes we go too far the other way. And then we begin to actually gaslight our children. Because we're telling our children things that they can see with their own eyes are not true. Like telling a child how the other parent feels about them, that they love them, they miss them, they want to see them, when their behavior clearly says otherwise, is damaging to your child. Making excuses for your partner's hurtful behavior and telling your child things that we know are not true continues to cause pain and wounds for that child. But we're also undermining their ability to interpret the other person's behavior properly. The child knows that something is wrong or that they're, hurt. They may be confused by what you're saying about the toxic parent, because that parent has already demonstrated and exhibited negative, behaviors throughout the child's life. So you trying to convince your child that what they feel isn't real and what they see isn't true is gaslighting your child. It's not helping them, because that toxic partner is not emotionally safe. That toxic partner needs to be held accountable for their behavior instead of us making excuses for them under the guise of, protecting our children. And that's part of our codependency. We tend to excuse our abuser. We want to keep the peace. And so we tend to do this even with our children. But what we're doing is we're teaching our children not to recognize the truth. We're not helping them to analyze other people's behavior correctly or to feel their own feelings. We're not helping them to recognize red flags. So we're not giving them the tools that they need to assess situations to determine what is safe for them and what isn't. And we're not allowing them the space to make the decision to withdraw or protect themselves from a toxic relationship. So we need to teach our children that they can trust their gut. They need to trust that what they're seeing and feeling is real. So stop making excuses for your toxic partner under the guise of taking the high road, being the bigger person, trying to encourage a relationship with that other parent. Look, it's not our job to make sure our children have a relationship with our toxic ex. It's not our job to paint the toxic parent in a positive light and try to convince the child to engage with that toxic parent. It's not our job. We don't need to make them think or feel a certain way about the facts. We don't need to coach the child on how to feel or interpret things. Let it be what it is and let the child feel what they feel. Now, that's not to say we can't try to help them process what's happened or how they feel, but that does not mean you disparage or badmouth their other parent anyway. You should not be venting to your child about the issues you have with your ex. But what you can do is be a sounding board for them and validate the reality and the truth of what happened and how the child feels about it. So you can say something like, yes, I understand what you're saying. How did that feel? I understand you were hurt, or I understand that must be disappointing. We can validate the fact that they're hurt, disappointed, angry, because that toxic parent's behavior warrants that response. Let's stop gaslighting our children. Instead, let's help encourage them to identify problem behavior, assess the situation honestly, and be able to express their feelings about it. You can help your child determine how they want to respond to that hurt. Now, the reality is, when dealing with an abuser or a narcissist, they will not own their behavior and may just double down or escalate if confronted with the truth. So it may not be safe for the child to express how they feel to that parent. It may be the only support that you can provide is to listen and validate their feelings. So let them practice expressing their feelings in a safe environment with you. Help them develop confidence and self-esteem and the ability to see the truth for themselves. We want to give them some tools where they can protect themselves as much as possible, or even walk away or choose not to see that parent if that is an option. So let's work to strengthen our children emotionally the best that we can. Sometimes, like I said, all we can do is help the child process what they're experiencing, but without trying to sugarcoat the truth, or conversely, crossing that line into toxic behavior of our own by bad mouthing and tearing down that other parent. You don't need to convince a child that their parent is toxic. Let the child draw that conclusion based on their own experiences. They'll figure that out themselves. Let them come to their own interpretation based on their own feelings and how they were treated. But don't try to convince your child that this toxic parent is somebody that they're not. Don't try to tell the child how the toxic parent feels or what the toxic parent wants. That's for the other parent to demonstrate to the child. Because eventually the child will realize that you betrayed them, that you also played a part in the deception, that you fostered the facade, that the toxic parent loved them, wants time with them, wishes they could see them, etc. But that's simply not true. So stop excusing, defending, justifying, and sugarcoating the toxic parent's behavior, because now you're lying and gaslighting your child.